Morning, Year 5s and Year 6s, and welcome back for Wednesday's English lesson. I've just remembered actually that Mrs. McGill pointed out to me that I'd put the date wrong on the last two, so I just need to change that while I think about it, because it is 2021. Anybody think I enjoyed 2020 so much that I'd want to do it again? Anyway, before we start the lesson, I just wanted to plug another book to you because I've been reading quite a lot of children's literature recently, and there's some that I have really enjoyed. And I told you yesterday about the series that starts with Once, about the Polish Jewish boy, which I've really enjoyed. I finished the last one last night, and I have to confess I did cry. This is another book that I have really enjoyed. At the moment, it seems to be a bit of a World War II theme, strangely, as we're doing World War II, but this book is really good, about an orphan who goes to live with his aunt, who happens to be the housekeeper for Hitler's mountain residence. So he meets Hitler as part of the story. It's a really good book. It's by the same person that wrote The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. So if you've read this one, you may well enjoy that one as well. If there are any books that you've been reading at home that you've really enjoyed and you think are worth a plug on here, then please let your teachers know via your blog, and they will hopefully pass it on to me, and then I can plug some more books as we go through the week. And not just books that I've enjoyed, but books that you guys have enjoyed. Anyway, here is today's lesson. So Wednesday, the 22nd of January, 2021, not 2020. And the learning intention is, can I organise my notes into a written plan? So pause the video now, get that written down, and restart when you are ready to move on. So before we move on to today's main lesson, let's do a little bit more revision on formality. So this question here, which sentence is the most formal? And we have 4 sentences. Think about what I said yesterday about contractions and about the language that we're using to help make things sort of more formal or informal. So pause the video now, have a think about this question, and restart when you're ready to go through the answer together. Okay, welcome back. So we have watching too much television should be avoided. You shouldn't watch too much TV. Watching lots of TV isn't a good idea, and you really should try not to watch loads of telly. Okay. Hopefully, like me, you think that number 1 is the most formal. Now, what is it about number 1 that is the most formal? Okay. Avoided is probably quite a formal way of saying you shouldn't watch too much TV, isn't it? Okay. We've also referred to it in full as television rather than these 3 that got TV or telly, which is quite an informal way of referring to television, isn't it? We've also, that thing that I mentioned yesterday about the passive verb. So we've got the verb to be with the main verb in the past tense, the past participle of the verb. To be avoided is the passive, which I said is also a more formal way of writing, okay? And also we have a couple of contractions, which I said we tend to use in a more informal way. So hopefully you picked up on those things and you're getting good at spotting whether things are formal or not. So the main part of a lesson today, hopefully you managed to get loads of research done yesterday. Hopefully you got pages and pages of notes. You may have done it as spider diagram, you may have done it as bullet pointed lists, okay? Today I want you to be transferring that into a plan, okay? And the more time you spend on the plan, the better or easier you will find it to write your report when you start to write it, okay? So I've come up with, for the purposes of today's lesson, 3 subheadings that I think I would like to have if I was to write a report on rationing. Okay, so why was rationing introduced? When was rationing introduced? And how did rationing work? Now, there were a few other subheadings that I thought I could have had, but I didn't want to make it too small so that it was really tiny and you couldn't see it. So I've just focused on 3 for now. Okay, so my first question, why was rationing introduced? Well, rationing was introduced because during World War II, food was in short supply, okay? So short supply, why was it in short supply? Well, the reason that food was in short supply was because the Germans were trying to weaken the British by cutting off their food supply, because obviously in those days a lot of our food, as it still does today, came via boats across the channel. Okay, as an island nation, we had to import a lot of our food and it came across the channel. So their German submarines were bombing the ships to try and sort of weaken us by cutting off our food supply. So German submarines attacked boats, weakening Britain, cutting off food supply. Now, I haven't got much room now, but there is another fact that I think would be quite good to highlight this fact, is that prior to the war, we were importing 55 million tonnes of food. Well, during the war, that was reduced to 12 million tonnes. So that could be something, actually, that you could put as an interesting fact, what we talked about yesterday, about having one of these boxes ago. Did you know that before the war, Britain imported 55 million tonnes even? Okay, so that's what I also could add. When was rationing introduced? Okay, well, when rationing was introduced, that was introduced in January 1940. Now, I can still do it in kind of note form. I haven't got to write in full sentences. So Jan 1940, that was for food. Okay, although that started in January 1940, people had to register back in September 1939. You had to register the number of people in your household in September 1939. Okay, so that's one point I want to make. But it wasn't just food that was rationed, okay? There were other things as well. So a fat petrol was already rationed prior to that in 1939. Okay, clothing was rationed from June 1941, and don't ask me why, but interestingly enough, soap was rationed from February 1942. Okay, and also interestingly, and this maybe is something for a sort of like interesting fact box. Did you know, as I didn't know this, bread wasn't rationed during the war, but after the war in 1946, then rationing for bread was introduced. Okay, so 1946, bread was rationed, and rationing ended in 1954. So obviously you will organise your notes far better way than I am at the moment, in a more logical way. I'm just trying to squeeze them in where I can, okay? So that's obviously going to come at the end. And how did rationing work? Well, people were given ration, but everyone was given... Everyone was given a ration book. So men, women and children. It wasn't just the household, it was everybody given a ration book. And I can't write today, sorry. Everyone was given a ration book, and different food items were treated differently. So we had coupons for things like basic foodstuffs, so meat and cheese and butter and things like that. And then we had a point system for sort of like cupboard staples like tin foods, dried fruits, cereals, and kind of the amount that you could have, I think, varied depending on the sort of like the demand and the supply. If you were pregnant, so expectant mothers, or you were children, then you had a priority allowance for eggs and milk, because obviously you need more of those to sort of like keep you healthy. Fruits, interesting, fruit and vegetable was never rationed at all during the war, even though some of it was in short supply, and people were encouraged to grow their own. Okay, so they're all things that I could have added to that section. Okay, so there's lots of things, probably even more that I could have added into some of these, but I only have limited space on my board, and I'm sure you have more notes that you could add in. So really, this is your time today to produce a plan that you're then going to write your report from tomorrow. Okay, so put a lot of effort into this plan today, because the more effort you put in, the easier you will find it to write your report tomorrow. Because you really want to be using this rather than your notes, which might be all over the place. Okay, so this needs to be a more kind of structured way of presenting your notes, so that will help you write your report. Anyway, I hope that is helpful. Let me know if there's any books that you want me to share on here, so that other people might enjoy the same books that you've been enjoying, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care, bye.